Have Connor on today. We're kind of going to go into a dark part of our society. And I know you've done a lot of research on the Epstein files. And
the dark part being Epstein files.
Yeah, not you being here, the dark part being the Epstein files. But like from my standpoint, I think one of the biggest problems in this whole situation is, we've talked about the release of the files. There's all this momentum, but I think it's almost like momentum that is not going anywhere. It's almost like a lot of activity, but no movement towards some kind of conclusion for victims and things like that.
Yeah, it seems to me as a moment in U.S. history, if we want to put it that way, where there's a general sense on this is not a left v right conversation anymore. This one I think is one where you and I pretty much fall on the exact same viewpoints for the most part of what's going on here, and the problems with it being it essentially does feel like we have all this stuff and we're just spinning our tires with nothing going on, because everyone, and myself included, I've been vocal about demanding, we have this information, it needs to be out there, we need to do something. But it's more than just the information. It's what is the timeline associated with it, what has been said and not said, and then why is nothing happening? Why are we seeing other countries arrest people or kick people out of royalty positions, or we're seeing people resign, and there's nothing happening in the country where most of this took place.
Well, I think there's a lot of places that weren't inside of our country, but you have a U.S. citizen in Jeffrey Epstein and some of the other people that were involved,
and prominent people.
Right. And I think that's the biggest issue. And I'd like to spend a lot of time talking about, just walking through the investigation and just all the things that happened. But what it appears to a person in law enforcement is you have a lot of information. You have some very strong allegations. He obviously spent time in prison. Jeffrey Epstein did, for doing some really bad things to children. And it doesn't seem like anybody has an appetite for anything but gotcha moments of hey, this person's name in there. It's one thing to communicate. Yeah. It's from my standpoint, you look at it and you think it makes sense. I understand people's desire to have this salacious information about I heard Bill Clinton was there. I heard he flew on it. And I feel like there is so much time spent on Bill Clinton was on the plane. Donald Trump was on the plane. This person was on the plane. They went to the island this many times. But you have actual victims out there who I would say would probably be willing to provide information. And certainly if you were able to issue some kind of process like grand jury subpoena, have them come in and testify as to what they know.
Well, and that's something, importantly, you don't even have to think. I can tell you for certain that multiple victims have come forward and said, we want to talk. We have reached out to the FBI offering to come in at any time, and there's been no follow-up, according to them, into these situations. And what makes it so, I think, difficult right now, and what kind of makes it divisive to a degree, is the prominence in which our current president plays in the relationship. We know they had a friendship. We know they were associated in the 80s and 90s. We know they had a falling out. All this stuff it is what it is. It's known information. But it gets murky because some of the timelines don't quite add up. Some stuff, you look at Howard Lutnick, I think Commerce Secretary or Transportation Secretary. He's a cabinet member who said, "Oh, I didn't see or hang out with Jeffrey Epstein after 2004 or 2009, something like that." And then 2014, him and his family met up with Jeffrey Epstein for lunch. And in the grand scheme of things, if they were just happening to be it was on the Caribbean island or whatever, if I remember correctly. And it's an inconsequential thing, or it should be an inconsequential thing of, yes, I came across someone that I knew from a past life and we grabbed a bite to eat because we were in the same place.
Right.
Shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
But the fact that Lutnick is sitting here so adamantly saying, I never saw him again, it just falls into this quagmire of another lie, another cover up, it becomes more than it probably would have been, because there's just been so much attention drawn on these. There's been so much sleight of hand attempted, if you look at, and I can go into it, the overall timeline of just the last, year and a half or so, that this has been a prominent aspect of almost daily news and social media coverage, that there's a lot of stuff where it seems it comes to me like either manipulation or sleight of hand or trying to, I don't know, like it reminds me of being a kid trying to tell your parents enough of what they want to hear to kind of say, yeah, it happened, but not fully get all the way in trouble for doing something. So if you want, I can do a quick rundown of the.
Well, I think, let's go through the time frame, but I think again, what is missed in this is that, again, I feel like everybody, I watched a lot of different documentaries and things like that. And what it was more about is the who's who that are associated with Epstein.
Yep.
I don't hear anybody talking about, we have over this number of victims that we've identified, and we have exhausted all investigative materials in relation to this case. Because one of the things that I saw as far as an investigation is, and I don't know the ramifications, but they were saying like a lot of the people, there were statements made by staff on the island and at residences on the plane and everything else, that they were like, we saw teenage children, teenage girls getting on an aircraft dressed what they felt like was more like somebody that was in the sex industry.
Provocatively or inappropriately for someone of that age.
Yes. And they said that they thought like there's something wrong here. The problem is one of the people that did the documentary said the problem is they all have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and it would put them in jeopardy if they said something. And so that's what I struggle with more than anything is.
Well, and you might, just real quick to jump in, do you know to what degree NDAs hold after the passing of, so Jeffrey Epstein has passed away. Does the NDA still hold?
It would,
if it regards that individual.
Because, well, what it was is he probably did it through his corporation.
Gotcha.
However, I do feel like my limited understanding of civil law and everything else, and like there are a lot of people that know, most of the population knows more.
We are not lawyers.
No, we're not.
I am
full disclosure.
I am no importance.
Right. So, but like from my standpoint, I feel like if there isn't, there should be some kind of way to conduct a criminal investigation in spite of the NDAs. But talk a little bit about what you've heard about the victims and their willingness to come forward and make statements, and what have you heard?
Yeah. So most prominently, there was a hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi. I want to say back maybe January, February. I think it was about January, in which they were at the congressional committee was grilling her on why haven't all the files been released? You had dates, you had, timelines that you were supposed to provide us with stuff, and you haven't. Some stuff had come out by just a congressional inquiry. But what is important is that at that congressional inquiry, victims of Jeffrey Epstein were invited to attend. And at one point towards the end of the hearing, there's this genuinely just, I think it's going to be in history books down the road, this photo of Pam Bondi, just sort of, if she's sitting at this desk, like looking down to the side, and just behind her is probably about a dozen victims, because they were asked to stand up and were asked a couple questions. And it's this really poignant photo of someone just not even, our attorney general just not even acknowledging that these people are in the room. But in that instance, it was, I want to say about a dozen, maybe more victims who were asked, like, have you said you would provide testimony? And they all essentially said yes. Has the FBI reached out to you to get your, to interview you about what happened? No, none of them said they had. Have you reached out to the FBI to say you'd be willing to, testify or provide information? All of them said yes. And
how many what would be your estimation on how many victims you had that were willing to talk?
In that room, it was a dozen at least.
Okay.
Outside of
So
that,
we're not talking about one or two people.
No. And I was about to say even more than that, there was a kind of like a victims rally that same day outside the courthouse. And I want to say that was dozens, if not, 100. It's estimated, I want to say, that over the course of Epstein's tenure doing the awful, awful things that he did, it's probably thousands of people that were either victims, aware of, present for, know something.
Right.
And so the unfortunate answer to the question is, I don't think we actually know how many victims are really out there, how many are willing to testify, how many have just moved on with their life thinking it's, just bury it and pretend, try and just not think about it. And unfortunately, how many maybe aren't with us anymore because of the actions that have happened. And so I know at least what we've seen over the last few months is dozens, if not hundreds of people have kind of come forward and said, hey, I was around, I was a victim, I was in some way present, and I would like to talk about it. And it doesn't seem like there's been much reaching out from the DOJ or FBI or anyone to get those statements. And now I will, add a caveat right there of, we don't know what closed door investigations might currently be happening. We can't with 100% certainty say that there isn't something in the works, but there are too many people, in my opinion, saying I was there and no one's willing to talk to me about it, to say that there is. Because you would think that in any of these cases, you would want people to come forward with what they experienced and what they saw if they're willing to talk about it.
So what I think about is, I think about a lack of commitment to push resources to address these victims. Mm-hmm. And I think it's both sides. I don't think it doesn't appear that either side has the desire to use the Epstein files for anything other than political cannon fodder for each other.
I do. Short answer, yes. I think this is one of the situations where, generally speaking, from just the average, the yous and me's, mm-hmm. I don't think it's a left or right thing anymore. I don't think this is a case that is truly, yes, there's obviously because of the ties to our current president and other known figures, there will absolutely be a political aspect to this. It would be ridiculously damning if it came to pass and came to be proven that our sitting president was involved directly in this. But I think that the important thing is, it's when people talk about it, and myself included, I'm just as guilty of this, is you get to the Trump part of things and sort of zero in on that because of the nature of who he is. But the important thing is, you're right, that it's not. There seems to have been a shortcoming across the board of active investigation. He got arrested and charged and then ended up committing suicide, allegedly, in prison. And that sort of seemed like the end of it for a second. But so there's still a lot of questions. Let's talk about that
for a second, because let me get, if your understanding is the same as mine, and neither one of us are saying we're subject matter experts. We're just taking open source information of people that have deep dived into that. Yep. And the thing that I've seen in that deep dive is, the real question is, first and foremost, which I thought was interesting in watching it, is that he had attempted suicide before, mm-hmm. While he was incarcerated. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not like, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe this dude would kill himself, because mm-hmm. he had already tried to kill himself. So, you can take that either way you want to take it. You can go, okay, there is this mass conspiracy, or it's just like, hey, somebody was committed to do something and they finally got it done. One of the things that I think was interesting that I saw was that the Department of Justice and the FBI had sat down with Epstein's attorneys, mm-hmm. Just prior to his suicide, and he had made the decision, according to his attorneys, to the FBI and the DOJ, that he was going to cooperate, mm-hmm. and he was pretty much going to produce the receipts on the people that were involved in what was going on.
Yeah, and so it's
Is that your understanding?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay, well, tell me your like.
No, I mean that's pretty much where I'm at with it.
Okay,
well.
I didn't know if there was any like caveat that you'd like
No.
to add to it. So we're both in agreement that it appeared. Number one fact is, while he was incarcerated in the metro, I think it's the Metropolitan.
Yeah, to my understanding,
he had tried to kill himself before there. They had put two things in place to keep him from that situation. One was to assign him a roommate, and then the enhanced checks. And both of those were removed, which obviously feeds into the conspiracy theory, like you got cameras down and everything else. But at the end of the day, what we do know is that it appears that Jeffrey Epstein, before his death, had decided he was going to provide information about his network and his criminal activity.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
Okay.
And I think that to play the why it gets so impassioned or why it's becoming just full-blown conspiracy theory territory is this aspect of there seems to be a unwillingness or an almost just I don't even know what to call it, but this ability to just not really get, like, the people who talk about it, especially the people in this administration, to not really get out of their own way or to create situations that cause more doubt than provide clear answers. And then when they do try and provide that answer later, well, now is it this or is it this? Because you've said to, so like with the his suicide in prison. Initially, again, AG Pam Bondi came out and was like, "Oh no, it happened." Like, but nothing weird happened. Nothing happened at all. Everything's fine. And then very quickly after that, it's like, "Oh well, there are 3 minutes missing from this video." And then she came out again. It's like, "Oh, we found it." But anyone who looks at the timestamp saw that it was like 1.5 minutes. It wasn't the full time. And so it's these moments where, quite frankly, like, nothing could have happened. He could have just killed himself. That could have been as simple as that. But the fact that there are all these question marks, and the fact that it seemed like, to me, it comes across like what you always see in like dramas and TV shows where like one significant other catches the other one cheating. It's like, oh, well, she's just a friend. Oh, well, we only texted once. And it's like pulling teeth to get the actual story. And when you get to it, it ruins all credibility of that story because of the trail it took you to get there. And I think that's where so much of the like animosity, confusion, anger, whatever right now happens, is that it just, like, every step along the way, it seems like we've been trying to be like bait and switched or something else. But to go back to your point, yes, like it does seem like that's where Epstein was at at the end of everything, which draws into that sort of conspiracy theory of like, if he was willing to name names and everything, lay it all on the table, it would make sense that if there are that powerful of people involved, that maybe, fueling the conspiracy, maybe something did happen.
Right. Or maybe he came to the realization of like, I would rather go out of this world than to put my family or people that I care about in harm's way. I mean,
yep.
I think the thing that I look at with this administration, and obviously I'm on the right side, not like the correct, I'm saying the right side. I know we discussed that before. Yours is called left and mine is called right. And so we'll just decide who's right. Now,
yep.
In all honesty, I think one of the things about this administration is because he has chosen people that don't have the same level of experience in dealing with the media and stuff like that. I think about the FBI director. Seems like he's got his heart's in the right place, but he has got ahead and he's got way over his skis on a couple things, like announcing things like, hey, we have the right person in custody. And then it's like, no, they're just a person of interest. And that does feed the conspiracy theories.
Well, and he's one too that has, through all of this, has muddied the waters.
Right. And I think
he was in a congressional hearing saying there's no, we've looked through them. I've looked through all of them and there's no one left to warrant further investigation. Fast forward. That's not true.
So this is one of the things that I've learned from life experiences. I remember I was a young deputy and we had a fatal crash, and obviously, and there were the people involved were younger, and family members were coming to the scene, and I made the mistake in the heat of everything. I wanted to give that family some type of closure.
Mm-hmm.
I was depending on somebody to tell me the correct information, but they didn't. And in my haste to try to give them some sort of closure, I gave the wrong notification to the wrong family member. And as a result of that, like I never after that got so far ahead, like I would look at what I had in front of me and I wanted to make one. It wasn't just like, hey, a tattoo matches or anything else. It was like with 100% certainty, I can say the person that is deceased is this person. And I think there are a lot of people that haven't had that experience, and I think it's easy for people to look at it and go, I want the information now. And like there is a desire, I think, to be like, especially when you have information. Obviously that was not information that I wanted to push out, but like I do understand in this type of situation why things can go spinning so fast is it's like, oh my gosh, you've got presidents, you've got royalty, you've got this, you've got that, and you want to be able to be the one to break that information. And sometimes like slowing down and making sure your information is correct does wonders for the conspiracy theories and everything else. And so I just wish, like for me, if I was in this, and Lord knows nobody wants me in charge, but if I were in charge, what I would ask is I would say we need to slow down and we need to focus on what's important. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We have children who were molested and treated in a way that no child should ever be treated. They are a victim. I don't care if they're 30, 40, 50 years old, they're a victim, and they should be treated as such. And there should be...
And they deserve closure.
They do.
and
with 100% certainty, that is a generational thing. And if they don't get justice, it's just going to go from one generation to the other. And I think that's what I do not hear nearly enough on either side of. We as a institution, whether it be Congress, whether it be the Senate, any of them, the administration, they need to clearly say, we understand that this dude is a bad dude. He was a bad dude. He has victimized a lot of children, and we don't care if they're adults now or not. They are owed some measure of our commitment. I don't care like whose feelings we hurt. I don't care if it comes down and it splits everybody in half when it comes to, well, the Republicans, like if you want to keep scoring, like, okay, there were 20 Republicans that were involved and 19 Democrats. I don't care.
Yep.
All I care, in my opinion, and it's overlooked by everybody right now, in my opinion, and everything I looked at, nobody spent any time talking about the victims.
Correct. No, and I, yeah, 100%. Everything
they get in these modes of like, well, the Epstein files said this. It's like watching a soap opera. And what is forgotten in this is these people have, like, I want people to think when you have a child, the innocence of a child that was taken from them from some horrible people. And we're going to just ignore that at this point and try to like one up each other, use it as cannon fodder against each other, like Republican, Democrat. Like I wish everybody would pump the brakes and say, we have victims. We need to make this right. Because I think it's a stain on us as a country and who we are. Because I know you and I have talked about that. And I talk about that a little bit with Europe. Like you have people going to jail based on these files, and we're sitting around pointing fingers and turning this into a damn soap opera when the reality is we have a crime. We have numerous crimes that have been committed. I don't care who committed them. They are still responsible to what is right or wrong.
Well, and I think that's what's so difficult about this country and I will fully say, people can go scroll through my Facebook and I'm just as guilty as the next person of strong opinions about the current administration and how things have been handled with the Epstein files. Because there is this this just ingrained correlation between this administration and this gentleman, not even a gentleman. He doesn't deserve that. This dude, Jeffrey Epstein, and because of that, we do get bogged down.
He's
in the
a
politics.
monster.
Yes.
He was a monster.
Yes.
I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but if you look at an innocent child and what he put those innocent children through, he's a freaking monster. He's more scary than anything you could possibly put in front of your child.
He will go down as the most prolific, awful human being probably in U.S. history, or at least modern U.S. history. But what's so difficult about it is you look, so for instance, you look at the United Kingdom. Prince Andrew had his royal status revoked. I believe he was arrested and at least like detained or questioned. He's since been released, but that's the brother of Prince Charles, I believe. Done. He's pretty much, as much as a royalty member can be, like, he's done. The former PM, prime minister of Finland or Denmark or somewhere, and I forget exactly where, again, arrested under investigation. You've seen very prominent European names, either former prime ministers. I think one was the former representative for NATO, I believe, but a handful of not small people, big name people that are facing repercussions, not because they participated in anything, not because it's been found that they participated in any direct action against kids,
right?
But just because they were known accomplices or associates with Epstein.
Right.
There has not been any proof, as definitive proof, that Prince Andrew did anything with a kid. It's pretty well assumed based on the relationship, but there's been no definitive proof. But because he was as close as he was, because it was as questionable as it was, because it was as linked, they said, that's enough for us. And so what's so hard, right, with me looking at the US, is there's really been nothing. There's this aversion to saying, hey, yeah, this person is named X amount of times, maybe we should at least investigate it. And I think where it becomes very difficult to have the conversation, to separate the conversation within the US, is that one of those names is Donald Trump. And it is factually known that they had a relationship, but where it becomes so difficult is because of his political style, and as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of it.
I've heard stories.
You've heard stories. People assume it becomes a left-right political, oh, you're just going after him because I'm some liberal, leftist lunatic. It's like, no, I am. You can call me that, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, it warrants an investigation. It's this, to me, weird, perfect storm of, you have a president who has policies that are upsetting parts of the country. You have a president who, his former life, I personally just don't like him as a human being. I think he's made enough comments in his past that I'm like, not my cup of tea. And then there's this, but because of it, it's being spun in this way of, oh, well, you're going after him to get him kicked out of the. It's like, no, I'm going after him. I want to see a subpoena because he's referenced in these files tens of thousands of times. I say the exact same thing for Bill Clinton. There are pictures of him there, and he's referenced. He got subpoenaed. He came in and testified. Hillary Clinton got subpoenaed, came in and testified. So you're seeing, to me, it is not a left-right political. It's, I don't care who you are. If your name is in those files, I want you to be subpoenaed and questioned.
But I think if we stay on that course, we're going to be the exact same place 4 years from now. To me, what we have to do is, I feel like, as a general public, have to stand up and go, our kids aren't for sale. You do not get to choose the value of our children. These are our children.
Well,
and as a result of that, these children belong to someone, and these kids are important. And because they're important, as a country and as a group of people that vote, we need to come in there and say, stop all the bullshit. Stop talking about, oh, I heard this person was this. I heard this person was this. And say, we have over 100 victims identified. We are conducting an investigation. We have 100 investigations opened. And
that's where that's what I mean when I say it gets so quickly tied to, oh, you just want to impeach him or get him out. It's like with the president, it's to your exact point, I agree completely with. It's not about the perpetrator, it's about the victim. It's about justice for the victim. It's about all of this. But unfortunately, when you look at some of these names that have come forward who are trying to tell their story and that damn well deserve justice because our president's name pops up periodically and with some regularity in these narratives. Well, now it's the left is just trying to take down Trump, and you lose sight of the justice for the victim. And I do think that media, myself, whoever, fail to focus enough on, no, this is for justice. This isn't about getting one over.
An example I give is if you want to have a confrontation, have a righteous confrontation. Mm-hmm. Don't ask about the files, because I understand, like you and I talked about that. President Trump was asked about the Epstein files, and he got mad and started talking about, like, why do y'all keep asking about them? Let's start mentioning the victims. Let's get a group of victims to come in there and say, I want justice.
And from my understanding, they've tried to.
But it's not a try to.
No, I mean, victims have tried to come forward. No, but
I'm saying, like, why can't we say let's stop the talking points. Like, like Fox News. Let's not talk about what the Clintons did. The liberal media, let's not talk about what Donald Trump did. Let's listen to the victims and hear them out about what went on. The files are one thing.
The hard thing is you can't break that link because the two are linked.
When you say you can't break that link, because like
what I mean is if you ask the victims to so for instance, one of the files that came out that caught some attention, it was an FBI tip. It's been unverified, but it was a story of a young woman who was trafficked by Epstein and her uncle, who ended up getting pregnant.
The uncle didn't.
Yep, the uncle did.
Just kidding.
No, the young lady did. She had the baby, and while they were on a yacht in Lake Michigan, the uncle got rid of the baby. You can infer what that was, but
right.
But what is mentioned in this, and that's an awful situation. That's Jeffrey Epstein. That's this woman's uncle. But what was also referenced was that our president Donald Trump was present at the time that all of that part happened. Now, again, this is just an FBI tip. It has not been vetted or verified to the full extent of an investigation. But what I mean is, if people are coming forward to tell their story, and it inevitably involves a president, a lawyer, Ludnick, the commerce secretary, these other people that are prominent, especially if they're prominent current Republicans or Democrats, when you look at Bill Clinton or whoever, it then immediately gets derailed into a left v right, and people step away from the victims conversation as much. And what I'm saying is we need to focus on the victims conversation, but the two will forever be linked because of the people involved.
But I think the problem is that we are doing is stirring the pot. Well, Donald Trump was there.
Yep.
You know what my question is, as an investigator, is what's the uncle's name?
Yep.
Let's start looking at records and let's conduct a proper investigation.
100%.
Doesn't matter where it goes. Like unverified tip, it needs to be cleared.
Yep.
Because one of the things I thought as I went through all this is how clear cut, like the investigation was on the Nancy Guthrie's mom.
I haven't followed that one that much, but yeah.
Anyway,
no,
she disappeared, right?
Yep.
And they haven't found her. But like it was very clear is where is she? Like it wasn't like there were theories and there were things that were that people gravitated to, but the question didn't change.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I think in this, we are focused and I think as a society is like the sensational of like, oh my gosh, he's mentioned this many times. He's mentioned this many times. And we forget, like, let's do because you and I talked about it the other night, is we had commissions for when John F. Kennedy, like, I'd like to look at it like this. Like when he was assassinated, the Warren Commission went into that. Do we not think that this situation doesn't warrant a commission? Because I don't know if any other crime or a person that is involved, like alleged criminal activity, that they have not, that you have had this many victims.
Well, and that I think is the
impacted.
The short answer is yes, and
it's impacted our whole political, because I feel like as the person that's in the 99%, not the 1% that appears to be able to do whatever they want to do, to include to our children, what I see like all this confusion of like, well, it's this or it's that. And you lose sight of the fact of like, no, this is a really, really bad situation and it deserves the attention, the clear, concise attention of people whose only task is let's go out and find our victims. If we can figure out who to deport, if we can do all these different things, identify our victims and give them
the names are
justice.
there. The names are in these documents. There was the incident where some Epstein files were released and victims' names weren't redacted, and so it caused a whole thing. There were fully nude pictures of these victims released to the public because the DOJ didn't do their job properly, which that's a whole nother part of this conversation. But I think the thing to your point is 100%, a bipartisan congressional commission in joint unit in joint efforts with the DOJ to investigate, because you can just approach us. We have the names. Let's get the stories.
I mean, I would take it a step further just so it doesn't become political. I think you have a commission like we discussed.
The hard thing is there's no way for it to not end up in some way political.
But this is how it is. I think you simplify it. And you simplify it by saying, okay, we got somebody from the right, somebody from the left, and then we have to agree, which obviously Congress doesn't do a great job agreeing on anything. But the majority of people have to support the neutral person, that's not right or left. So like they come up with, make it a small commission, but they look at each individual victim. And after with their investigators, no ties to DOJ or anybody else in the government, because I feel like that's an independent. It's almost like the, the Office of Inspector General.
Gotcha.
They operate independent. They investigate things within the government. I don't think you direct it. I don't think you direct it and say, okay, I think what you do is you have this commission and you give them, okay, here are the names. We're going to send investigators out for these 100 claims or however many claims. And at the end of the investigation, find out who they're going to report back to. There's not going to be no leaking of like names or anything else. It's going to be clearly like, this is the allegation. And it's not like the allegation of like, I heard such and such was there, or I heard this person was there. No, what happened? Like what you said, like who's your uncle? What's your uncle's name? Where does he live? Let's look at the records. What year did this happen? Do a clean investigation. And at the end of it, then make a referral to the FBI saying, based on the information that we have, we believe it falls under this code. Here are the date ranges for the prosecution of it, and refer it to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
I think in an ideal world that would be exactly how it would go down. Where I say that you will never avoid it becoming political is in the situation of you go, former administration lawyers are the ones that made a deal with Jeffrey Epstein in 2009 that gave him a criminal sentence, but he got to leave jail every single day to go to work. Like there were these, they call them sweetheart deals of, in no way should that have been legally allowed, but it was for whatever reason. You have Todd Blanche, the current deputy AG, who approved moving Ghislaine Maxwell from her prison to wherever she's at in Texas, which is a prison that, based on its security level, to my understanding, does not qualify to have child sex offenders at it, but she's there. He went and interviewed her. We don't know what we've got parts of that interview. Allegedly, she said X, Y, or Z, but you look at these aspects of things, and I think to your point of not involving DOJ, where Todd Blanche is,
and I'm not saying I am not,
but I think you kind of have to do that because there are too many connections,
right? Because I think what we have learned on both sides, your side has weaponized the Department of Justice, my side has weaponized it. There's like, you can bullshit and say like that doesn't happen, but we can go through the examples, one after the other, and it just turns into a debate. And but you would say the left has weaponized DOJ, and this administration and Republicans have weaponized it as well.
For argument's sake, yeah.
But I mean,
I disagree slightly just on the term of weaponization, only because I see aspects of, and not just with the left. I'm saying both sides have used the criminal justice system to settle scores politically. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And when I say weaponize, I'm saying, because I think from what we discussed with the whole Hillary investigation with Comey, I think based on what the general public knows, it would appear that like he submarined everybody. He submarined Hillary by saying, like, I feel like he came out and goes and said she did this, this, and this, which are criminal violations, but we're not going to charge her. Okay.
Sure.
So like, to me, like he gave her a path.
Yep.
But then I think he had a little bit of a regret, in my opinion, is he was like, man, I probably shouldn't have done that. So then when he gets another referral, he announces that she's under investigation.
Well, and I think that when looking at it in the scale of an investigation and with the, independent commission, all that, when it comes to like the Epstein files and whatnot, where I think we're also seeing a lot of drug feet in pursuing this is because it's people in a position of power that would have to kind of approve this thing. And I don't just mean our president, I just mean generally speaking, the elites, so to speak, whether they be financially invested or politically invested.
It's their people. It's their,
and that's what I mean.
The whole 1%
there
are
are
all
enough
political, and they're all people that have money.
Yeah.
So the top 1% that dictate what goes on, what we talk about, and everything else, are associated in same. I will make this statement that the upper 1%, there are a lot more of, like, there are a ton of them that are in the Epstein files. I don't see a lot of 99% in the Epstein files.
Well, and that's the thing.
Because I mean, have you heard anybody that they've come out and they're like, hey, he
Fred Smith from Idaho was in them? No. But that's what I mean is where you have enough power that even if they didn't do anything with kids, but were just a business associate or whoever, this, terror almost of what might come up in discovery. Like, let's say, you're not, he's a good guy, we're fine. But let's say you're just a business guy and you had to meet Jeffrey at his island on June 13th because that was the only time you could meet. And on June 12th and 14th, it was found out that through interviews with the victims, something happened. Well, now it's going to be, you were there right in the middle of that. So I think that there's a fear from people in power.
But I think,
what I'm saying is I think there's a fear of people in power of, even though I know I didn't do anything because I was there or because I was around the same time of something that might come out, there's a fear that it will repercussion onto them because of the quickness
and it should, because one of the things I think in the criminal justice system is
sexually based offenses are considered particularly heinous.
No. I'm saying in criminal investigations, it is what the average person would believe to be true.
Yeah.
So for example, if I drive you to a bank, right? I don't have to go into, you didn't tell me you're going to rob the bank, right?
Yep.
But I see you put a mask on and grab a gun, and then you come back with a bag of money, and I don't report it. I am responsible for the crime that you committed.
Well, and that's
how many of those same people that went to that island, like if everybody else is looking around and going, this doesn't look right.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. Honestly,
at the
end of it, it is. I should have known better, and nobody wants to.
The hard part with it, though, because I will, as objectively as I can, recognize that there are situations that we cannot necessarily be aware of right now, in the sense of it's not just the island, because he had his house in New Mexico, he had his apartment in Manhattan.
You mean the ranch?
The ranch in New Mexico, the house in Manhattan, which also I'm sad you didn't catch my Law and Order SVU reference a second ago.
My wife likes that show. I don't watch it.
Fair enough. But anyway, so there's this thing of, again, like if I'm a businessman in New York and I swing by Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in Manhattan at 4:00 for a quick meeting while I'm on my way out of town, and at 8:00 that night he's having some illicit conversation, but you see that I logged into the hotel, I think that there's this innate fear of people in power who genuinely may not have known like it was a one-time business deal that they happened to pop through, but they know that they're there and they know what he did. And because they have money and power, they're able to sit there and say, hey, even though I know I didn't do anything, I don't want to be pulled down in this. And so they're pushing to delay or inhibit investigations, or the push for an investigation.
I mean, I think like if you
I think there's a reason why we haven't seen a commission come out knowing what we know now. I think there's a reason
because everybody, it's like everything else that happens in the world is because everybody is so amused and drawn to like, ooh, he's a pervert. He's a pervert. Ooh. And it's like, we're keeping score. Well, it's 12 Republicans to 11 Democrats. And, you know, and I think that's the problem is that they're keeping us busy with all this information and it's all smoke and mirrors, and it loses sight of, to me, what is the most important fact, which is we have a monster who trafficked children for sex. That's it.
Yep.
And so if you start there, it doesn't matter for me, it doesn't matter who gets pulled into it.
Correct.
The fact is you have a monster who did this. And that's like what you said about the other countries is they, like, we sit here and call ourselves a Christian nation, and in Europe is like they're pagans, but they're holding people accountable.
Yep.
And so, like, from my standpoint, where are the religious leaders and the people that are like children? Like, what did Jesus say? Suffer the little children to come to me, right? It's getting ready to be Easter. Where are the religious leaders saying we do not stand for children being victims of crime? I don't care what this person brings to the table, what this person brings to the table, how much money they donate or anything else. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And we had a monster that trafficked children. Why don't we have more people stepping up and saying, stop with the talk? It's not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It is, we have children who have been victimized and we need to address this.
Yeah,
this is a large-scale human trafficking investigation that has, when did he die? 17 or 18? Or is it 19?
Yep, it's one of those three.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think it's actually
so
keep going.
Yeah, so like from my standpoint, I feel like there should be from the right side, from my side, from the religious leaders and people that have this concern and follow the ways of Christianity. 2019.
Arrested and died that same year.
But where are those people that should stand up and say, a monster victimized kids, and we do not believe. Like we want to say stuff about what other countries are doing to children, how there's famines and there are all these different things. But like in our own country, we are the only country that has not held a group of people who victimize kids, a large scale human trafficking, where we haven't even like investigated it fully.
No, the two main people have been arrested. One's dead. One's in the minimalist of minimum security prisons, still trying to get a pardon deal or something. But I think that's exactly the overwhelming frustration at the root of so much of it is we have victims that deserve and require justice, and we have done no accountability whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
We've called one major name before, I guess two major names before Congress to subpoena them to get their information.
We already knew before they got there they weren't sleeping together. There you go.
But it's that aspect of like, great, we did one, still nothing's.
But that was that. But even in that,
we're
like,
doing
we talk about that.
We're doing so little. Like I don't care. Trump, not Trump. Ludnick, not Ludnick. Clinton, not Clinton. Do something. Like start pushing some accountability. Work your way up, whatever it may be.
Here's what I want people, like, this is where my brain goes. Jeffrey Epstein was not the one that molested those kids. He wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people that molested those kids and they're still walking the streets. Yep. And if we don't break it, it's happening now.
And I know that it does get bogged down because it's our president and everything. It gets bogged down in that. And I know that I fall on the side of there's enough accusations to warrant questions. There's enough,
But that's the best for the political system and the 1%. That's the best possible scenario is get locked in on one person and investigate them. Let's just ignore the organization and all the people that molested these kids. Let's just ignore that.
And let's find a
trophy.
Yeah.
instead of like, let's actually get out there and deal with the problem.
And it needs to be at the end of it, not just one, but all of them.
No, it should be, this is the case. And what I would like to see at the end of the commission is we made a referral based on the information we have. There is or is not.
Here are 12 Fred, Bob, Joe, Tim, whatever.
John Doe, Jane Doe. Jane Doe 1, we investigated her claim, and based on that, we've identified 3 potential suspects for her.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, here's a list of people that we feel there's credible evidence to further to go into investigation on, to further.
Because I think that's what bothers me the most in all the stuff that I watch is nobody is talking about a criminal investigation.
Correct. Yeah,
they're talking about his conviction in 2008, right?
2008, 2009.
And they're talking about that conviction and the amount of time spent in jail, and then his additional charge. Funny story, not but like, this is neat. You know who broke the story that had them actually investigate him?
Which time?
The 19. Why he got charged. Miami Herald, a newspaper.
Yeah.
They wrote a story about what went on, and they popped him with the charge.
Well, so in 2016, I want to say, it was brought to light of a 1996 allegation against Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, but Jeffrey Epstein, by this lady who she used a pseudonym because she was afraid, Katie Johnson, that there was a under oath, was it affidavit or whatever, signed, where she testified to deposition, that at 13 she was at, and this is why I brought up the Manhattan apartment, that at 13 years old, she was with Jeffrey Epstein and other people at his apartment multiple times being abused. She swore under oath that this happened. Later, her lawyer came out, the charge or allegation ended up down the road being withdrawn because her lawyer came out and said she's scared. She's facing threats to withdraw this. That woman also ended up taking her own life shortly thereafter. And so you have these situations, kind of going back to your people, my theory on why people are afraid, but also your point of the people that are involved have power to intimidate and to strike fear in this. And I think that where the opportunity now sits is you have these dozens, if not hundreds of people. There's strength in unity. And so allowing all of these people to come forward and protect them, it's always hard to be the first one through the door, but it opens that door for everyone else to come forward. And you look at people who have done that and people who have stepped up, and you want to hope that for them, they get justice, for the next person, they get justice, and for the person down the road that this never has to happen to. And so, no, to your point, I do think it's as hard as it would be, and as much as I know it's easier said than done, it's end of the day, it's about the victims. But
it's not. We have a criminal justice system. We have a political system that is already set up for this. It's just do the powers that be, or in what I believe will probably be the case, or does the general public stand up and say, we won't stand for this anymore? Stop distracting and deal with the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is a monster trafficked kids, and they were molested by numerous people who have not been named and who have not been investigated properly.
And that's where you end up in these side investigations too, into, what has been released and who. So part of the Massey petition that went through was to release files, release names, only redact victims or people that are potentially in current active investigations, and any redaction that was made has to be justified to Congress. And what we're seeing is just pages and pages and pages blacked out, names blacked out that clearly should be a name of someone that needs an investigation or is in some way associated. And so there's now all these side questions coming up and these additional investigations that are probably going to come out into the DOJ or whoever of, why are perpetrators being redacted? Why are certain names being redacted? Those are the names that Congress needs to start these or to head towards these investigations.
But I think honestly, to your point earlier, as far as the example you gave as a businessman from New York, I understand why like somebody would push back and be like, put my name out there without any evidence because like, it could be that you could be that 1 in 100 that just happened to be passing through. And
I had to sign a paper because I leased a floor or something.
Right. So like from my standpoint, I think again, it goes back to the simplification of there's obviously been a crime, numerous crimes commit to like,
and I think that adds just this whole other layer of difficulty for, while it may not be many, that group of people that are just happen to be passing through an extra in the background of a movie, horror film, where as much as it's justice for the victims, there also needs to be some effort put into protecting literally innocent bystanders who do not catch strays, essentially.
Here's a thought. And it just popped in my head. I know when they had all the stuff with cigarettes, I know this is totally different, but like there was a class action lawsuit and people got to stand in line to get money based on cigarette manufacturers' claim that they were not addictive and all those different things. Let's make it simple. Let Congress put a fund together and have somebody come forward, if they're willing to come forward, donate, like give them a certain amount of money to allow professional investigators or entities to conduct a thorough investigation with their permission on the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think that opens other cans of worms of profiteering and stuff like that, but
I mean, something's got to happen.
So no, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like where you and I both are fully grounded in this is that nothing is happening.
Well,
and
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, how many pages did they? But like, it's like they released.
I want to say like the first drop was like 1 million documents. The next one was like 38,000, and there's still more that haven't come out yet for one justification or the other. It's a lot. It is, and I think the Epstein estate still has stuff that hasn't necessarily been subpoenaed yet. They've, from everything I've read, been very willing to turn over anything and everything that's been requested. I think, weirdly, of all people involved in this, it's been the Epstein estate that's put in the most effort to try and get justice for things, because they're sitting there going, yeah, take anything, take whatever you want.
Right.
Like, he was a monster. Take it. They're the ones that turned over the birthday book. They're the ones that turned over all these things upon request, I believe. But the willingness of them, by comparison to DOJ or Congress or any of this other stuff, it's this weird dichotomy of the people closest to the monster seemingly being the most transparent of any of it.
So talk about the birthday book. Let's close with that, just to give people an idea of how the depth of what went on.
Well, so, and it's something like that also it's why I feel you'll never be able to fully remove politics from this investigation, is because there was this book that came out that was released by the Epstein estate. It's for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. I guess Ghislaine Maxwell reached out to known associates, friends, whatever, and said, hey, can you send stuff in? I'm putting together a scrapbook for Jeffrey's 50th birthday. Like, send in whatever you need. And what first drew a lot of light to this was one page of a letter written by President Trump that had some just very weirdly worded, such and such secrets amongst friends, this, that, and the other. But what drew so much attention to it was the Wall Street Journal kind of broke this page that it was this poem and then this weird outline of, from my opinion, what looks to be a young woman with allegedly President Trump's signature where pubic hair would be. And so that sort of brought this book into the spotlight of media attention. Also in this book was a letter from President Trump, or President Clinton. I want to say there was something in there from the the dude that runs Virgin Mobile, whatever that guy, British or Australian guy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I'm blanking on his name now, but there are a lot of
Puffy
prominent
blonde hair.
Yep. Also has an island down in the Caribbean, vaguely close. Like, not saying that he's done anything, but it was known associates or business buddies or whatever, billionaires hanging out with billionaires type deal. Just sending this thing. But what kind of made it so prominent was you can look at it and go, it's a bunch of dudes, sending a letter, happy birthday, this, that, and the other, 50th birthday. It's a big milestone birthday. And it could be innocuous, but then there was, again, because of the nature of where we are, it's denials. Oh, I didn't do that. I'm not in that. That wasn't me, this, that, and the other. And so it bloomed into this thing that also included, President Trump suing the Wall Street Journal for defamation by releasing this, saying, that's not me. This is all fake. This is blah, 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 blah. And then it turned out to be real. And so it was this made up lawsuit. So it took this book sort of was a catalyst. Cause I think it came out in like November, but it was this catalyst for sort of casting these spotlights on multiple people involved. Why are you writing a letter? But also this catalyst for, okay, what are we lying about? What needs to be looked into? Who are these people and why are they there? And it just sort of.
But these are the reason this is so interesting is we're not talking about like you said, Fred or whatever from Iowa. It's like, these are like,
no, it's well-known.
It's people. A bunch of well-known people. So it's well known that we have a monster that is associated with a lot of power.
And I want to say his 50, someone will have to fact check me on when this was, but it was, I want to say right before his first conviction or between the two convictions. So it was at a time where, in theory, people would know something may be going on. Don't quote me on that. We'll have to fact check what that date was. But it's this moment of, to me, you're talking about, this commission, like here's a list of people that we might want to further investigate. That's in my opinion, darn good place to start because, I look around and maybe it's different when you're a billionaire,
right.
But I couldn't name you enough of my friends that would write me letters for my 50th birthday to make a whole book out of it. But to me, that's a pretty clear-cut list of people. And again, one of them was Bill Clinton. He was subpoenaed and they asked him about it because there was some word in his letter that they couldn't quite make out. And he's like, oh yeah, I have terrible handwriting. That word is this. But he read the whole letter in his subpoena interview. You can find the video of him doing it, going through it. But it's this aspect of like, to me, you look at the names in that book and you go, here's a perfect list to start an investigation with or to use as a point of reference.
So his 50th birthday, he was born January 20th, 1953.
So that would have been 2003.
2003.
So that would have been about 5 years before. 5 years before his first
criminal charge.
But it's also allegedly, I think after the window or right near the window of when people said, I think Lutnick said I didn't hang out with him after 2004 or something like that. So it just all falls in this time frame of stories not matching up, of stuff not matching up. And then I think, because of that, because of it, it also sort of ties to this other aspect of what has complicated this story so much. This moment in history is, again, you have the lawsuit, you have I didn't do it, like a lot of I'm not in it, it's not me, he said, she said, all this like finger pointing. And through all of it, you have various people in media, White House, administrative positions, FBI, DOJ, all these people saying, oh, we have this, we don't have this. There aren't any people that need to be investigated. Oh, there are people that need to be investigated. Oh, we have all these victims now that no one's talked to. And they've named all these people that no one's talked to. And so you take, and again, you piggyback off of the sort of the birthday book is you have all of this information that seemingly no one's actually doing something with, that seemingly it's, one day over the summer, I refer to Pam Bondi where she's like, oh yeah, there's a list of names on my desk. It's right there. We just got to go through it. Fast forward 6 months. Oh no, there's no list. What are you talking about? We never had a list. And so it's this just murky situation. And of course, it's the Biden administration had access to these names. Why didn't they do? And all this stuff out there. And
I mean,
so
I think it's clear based on our
the,
discussion. Nobody in power.
No one wants to touch us with a 10-foot pole,
and
but
there's a
us
reason.
as people are demanding it, and it's becoming harder and harder to run away from.
I think the reason to me, I believe that they're slow walking, and I think for the powers that be, it's a good thing for them to single out like Bill Clinton, because then you have the right going like Bill Clinton did this, Donald Trump did this, and so it goes back and forth, and it loses sight again of you have a monster who trafficked kids, and as a result, they were molested and sexually exploited, and they will not recover, and they have no justice.
I would not be surprised. So my personal theory, and as much as I can, I truly do not believe this as someone who leans to the left. I would not be surprised if they try and drag this out as much as they can till the end of
midterms.
Not even midterms. I think they drag this out till the end of President Trump's second term when he can't run again. Mm-hmm. And then he's a sacrificial cow. I think by the time once he gets to a position of no longer like new election, new president coming in, there's because of his age, because of his ties, and this is not me saying this as like someone from the left saying, "Oh, take down Donald." No, like because of how many prominent people, how many big names, how like if they want to make it, let's throw someone to the wolves to protect all of us, because that's more than likely,
like y'all did with Joe Biden when they realized exactly. he couldn't carry on a conversation,
something like that.
Okay,
but it strikes me as this moment where you have people in power trying to protect themselves, and where's the weak link? Where's someone that people don't like? The left doesn't like him. His own base is upset that he campaigned on releasing the files and then hasn't. So there's a bunch of people. To me, it looks like he is a prominent enough name, obviously, to be thrown to the wolves because to your point, find the one person to distract from everyone. And it'll be, look, we took down this guy, investigate, and that'll be enough. It'll be in the news, and the rest of things will sort of slate by. But I'm saying 2029. I'm not saying this is an impeachment thing.
The problem with that is I think he's as ornery as Joe Biden, and he will sabotage whoever he will sabotage. He, to me, has enough. Trying to think of the best word to call it, love of himself, that he would not go out without swinging.
Yes, but I think if he's old enough, because again, at that point he'll be 82, and honestly, like if
what are they going to do? Like cut his hand off so he can't tweet and all that other stuff? That's the only way he's not going to.
But that's what I mean is like he would be
like
old enough to be a sacrificial lamb, but with no real he's not really going to have what are they going to do? Put him in jail for 5 more years until McDonald's kills him or whatever? But.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. It's one of those. It's one of those things where
you somehow have taken this dark conversation and made it even darker.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
But that's your side. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, but the thing is,
trying to drag it right down.
There's no way to make this conversation not dark. No. And I think what is fascinating to me, and I know we want it to not be political, but what is fascinating to me is how unifying at our level of stuff. Not up there and not in the media, but in your day-to-day people.
They're unified up there. They're just on the wrong side of it.
But this aspect of you and I view things from pretty, not consistently 2 different perspectives, but I think more people than not are sitting here going, why don't the victims have justice? Why aren't we having accountability?
But nobody.
Why are we just spinning our wheels?
Nobody. Like people are pissing and moaning about the Epstein files, and what they need to do is they need to start getting in there and saying the victims need justice.
Yeah, the files are the files. They're not going anywhere. No. It's pissing and moaning about, okay, Congress, why aren't we doing anything? Why are we dragging our feet? Why aren't we doing an investigation? And I think that now is more of a unifying thing of, again, it doesn't matter, if it's Trump, if it's Lutnick, if it's Clinton, if it's whoever. But the fact that absolutely nothing seems to be happening in our country when so many others are taking steps.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're the clean country, and
you and I have talked, and you say we're the greatest country. Not when it comes to accountability on this type of thing. I would say we have fallen far short.
I would agree 100%.
And
so on a positive note, positive note is one of the coolest thing about a democracy in the country we live in is we have the ability to choose people that represent us and represent what we believe. And I don't care if you're right or left. We need to find people that have the kahunas to stand up and say, this is it. Like we're not kicking this down. We're not kicking this can anymore. There's going to be accountability, and it starts today.
Yep. And I know that all running for office, Congress and Senate, or House and Senate members listen to this podcast. They all tune in every week to hear our thoughts. If they do, it's for those of you that are potentially getting elected in 2026, step up and be the people you say you need to be, and do something about it.
This is too real. This is too real. They
won't listen.
They don't. They don't want reality, and they definitely don't want conversation with the post.
Well, on the off chance that they do, left, right, or center,
like do the right
do
thing.
Something.
Do the right thing.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I appreciate you making the drive down
Always.
here. All right. Thank you.